Right, let's move on to drawing with a pen and ink. As you can see, there are generally sort of two camps. One is the traditional Indian ink and the traditional type of drawing pen with what looks like a fountain pen nib, and on the other side is the more modern version, which is almost like a draftsman's pen. If we have a look at the 0.1, you can see there's a very fine uniform line, and in fact all of these technical pens tend to have a uniform line, and that can be a disadvantage if you want a little bit of character. We have a look at the 0.5. By comparison, you can see it's noticeably thicker. Not terribly so, but certainly so much that you can tell the difference. Here's the same. This is a number 3, but it's in a brown colour. And I tend to use this a lot, simply because I find that the brown, the dark brown, has a little bit more of a subtle effect when you're using pen and ink, and I tend to use that if I'm using a watercolour landscape painting, because the black, I feel, for me anyway, is just a little bit too stark. That 0.4 in red is actually, as you can see, a little bit thicker than the 0.5 in black. And the only reason I mention that is that there are two different brands, so you need to be aware of the different brands may not have quite the same thickness according to the numbers that they stamp on the end or the side of the barrel. Now we come to the traditional pen and ink, and you can see right away, although it's not quite as easy to work, a bit too much on there, you get a much greater variety of lines. You see I've got that quite thick, and then just by going lighter we can get it as a hit and miss effect as well. If we go sideways, get very, very fine like that, almost non-existent, or we can get a difference of line with the same stroke. Okay, and the only problem with pen and ink with a nib is that you need to have a reasonably smooth paper. This is cartridge, it's generally okay. Watercolour is a problem unless you use a hot pressed surface, which is very smooth, because if you move the pen around and then you try to go up, you find that I don't know about, no, I thought I might be able to replicate what often happens is that the nib catches in the paper and then flicks a whole series of unwanted droplets of ink all over where you just didn't want it. So that's the dip pen and the ink. But don't, oh, hang on, nearly forgetting, wasn't I? You have other things that you can use. Here is common or garden toothpick, or you could use a cocktail stick, and that gives a nice line. It can give a line of different widths, or you can drag it down the edge and give yourself some nice textures if you want. And here I've got something that you find in the garden, which is a barbecue skewer. And what I've done is I've taken the flat edge and I've trimmed it to a chisel edge here. Put a small slit in it just so it opens it up, only about 1/4 of an inch long, to hold the ink a bit more, and then you can use that as a very characterful and interesting edge. You've got to keep replenishing the ink on these sort of ad hoc drawing instruments, but that doesn't matter so much. So you can do all sorts with it. I suppose that would be flowers, or in fact I've just had a thought while I'm doing this. Let's have a little bit of fun, shall we? And what I'm going to do now is draw a cockerel, I think, but I was going to draw it just with the dip pen and ink, but I think we'll bring in some of the other instruments that I talked about and see what it turns out like. So here goes. We'll start off, I think, with the let's have a look. That's the sort of the hen's neck and shoulders, I think, like that. This is the 0.1 pen. And then we'll move on to, let's have a look. Yeah, we'll move on to the dip pen, I think. As I said, this should give us a bit more of a characterful line. Take this down towards our cockerel friend's legs. We need to get his wing in. Not that they can fly that much, but can't leave them without wings. Otherwise, how can he chase the hens? This shading in the front there. What I'll do now is draw in his head. It's rather inelegant cockerel's head. It's not the most beautiful of items, but I don't know, maybe for some people it has a certain attraction. What I'm using now, of course, is the red sketching pen. So I think we'll come back to the... Oh, we mustn't forget his little beady eye, could we? Must we? Fierce looking chap he is. Full of authority in his own farmyard. There's more than I can say about myself, but there you go. And then for a little bit of fun, let's do some tail feathers with our black barbecue skewer. This is what I suddenly got in mind before when I was just making marks. At least this is what happens, you see, with art. It's what's called happy accidents. Let's let's bring that down. Let's throw that in. Now this is going to inevitably mean we're going to get little bits of hit and miss into this area here with the ink where the I was only saying pen, the skewer isn't touching, but that's great because it's those little bits of hit and miss there that all add a little bit of character to the drawing, and a little bit of the looseness to it. And then we'll finish off maybe with give the dip pen a little go, and we never leave even the bird hanging in mid-air when it's on the ground, so we'll give it a little bit of ground to stand on, maybe a few grasses. It's a little bit of fun, isn't it? But it does show how you can quite easily get a little bit of character using a variety of pens, and we'll leave it at that, but I hope you get the idea. There's our friend the cockerel in all his glory. Pen and ink.